Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie. Thank you for having me.
Well, what do you make of this, that the mandate, that is that people who don't have health insurance have to buy it by 2014 or face a tax, according to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, Charlie, I think we had a curve thrown us by Chief Justice Roberts, the author of the majority opinion, that few, if any, foresaw. Let me make a couple of comments. One is Chief Justice Roberts, writing for a unanimous majority apparently on this point, that is 9-0, upheld the argument I and other conservatives have been making for 3 years, that this exceeded the Commerce Clause power. That is, the individual mandate at the heart of this law cannot be upheld as a legitimate exercise of the Commerce Clause of Congress. He then went on to uphold the individual mandate as an extension and an exercise of the Congress's power to tax. Now, I'll have several points to make about that in a minute, but the power to tax, the opinion suggests, is a political power that the legislative branch has, and it is essentially unreviewable by the Supreme Court. The opinion of Chief Justice Roberts says that this tax may be wise or it may be foolish. It is not the court's province or role to make that determination of the wisdom or unwisdom. But if the Congress has exercised their taxing power, it is not reviewable by a court. Now,
the big question is, since when did this become a tax?
This is doubly ironic, Charlie, and your question gets to the heart of the irony. Throughout the 14-month debate, we had 14 months leading up to the March 2010 passage. Every proponent of the law stoutly, from the president on down, stoutly denied that this was an exercise of the Congress's taxing power. The President of the United States went on ABC, questioned by George Stephanopoulos, on the 20th of September 2009, before the March passage the following year. And Stephanopoulos, you may remember, Charlie, pressed him on this very point. Isn't it a tax, Mr. President? And the President kind of got his back up. He kind of got irritated and denied that it was a tax. No, Charlie, it is not a tax, he said. This is not an exercise. Yeah, sorry. No, George, it is not a tax, he said, not an exercise of the Congress's taxing power, and was really kind of irritated on the subject. Then we get to passage in March 2010, and the legal challenges, such as mine and others, spring up across the country. And the Department of Justice, working for the President in his administration, immediately began arguing that it was a tax and could be upheld. Now, that argument has carried the day in the majority opinion. But you know what, Charlie? One of the judges below said, in his opinion, finding the other way, he said, Congress can't have it both ways. They can't deny that it's a tax and then have it upheld as a tax, which is effectively what's happened today in the Supreme Court. He said, if you do that, you're lacking the political accountability that should fix on Congress when they're doing a tax. In other words, they should say they're doing a tax, and they should be proud of it, and they should face the voters on that basis. You can search through all 2,700 pages of this law and not find the word tax or the taxation power exercise. So the political accountability will now be focused between now and November over the 4+ months that remain, and really, this is where the debate is. I wonder if Claire McCaskill and the other people who voted for this law are happy now to defend the largest tax increase in American history, which they denied was a tax the whole time they were debating and voting on it.
And this may be an aside, but the governor of Missouri announced the other day that he's always been against the mandate.
Fascinating. Isn't that amazing? Do you think he's read some polls lately? Well, he even implied, apparently, yesterday to the Kansas City Star, somewhere between an implication and coming right out and saying that he voted for Prop C, Charlie, the Healthcare Freedom Act, put forward by Senator Jane Cunningham at the 2010 August primary that was passed by Missouri voters 71+%, passing all 114 counties. You know, I mean, Missouri voters lit a prairie fire with that vote across this state and across this country. And all I can say is today's ruling, vindicating it under the taxation power when they never said they were exercising the taxation power for 14 months. This is going to reignite the Tea Party as it never has been before, and the cause of limited constitutional government.
That's quite possible, although it looks as though, according to a Wall Street Journal poll of Americans, let's take a look at how they feel about the individual mandate. 55% said it would make no difference either way if that provision were struck down. A quarter, 25%, said that they or their family would be hurt if the mandate was overturned. And 18% said that such a move would help their family. So it doesn't look like it doesn't look like people are all that concerned about the mandate. I know maybe members of the Tea Party are, but you can't say that a majority of Americans are really freaked out by it.
We'll see, Charlie. Until about 10 minutes after 9 this morning Central Time, Missourians and Americans did not know that this thing would be upheld as a power to tax.
Right. Well,
they now know that that's the basis on which Claire McCaskill and the other folks who voted for it, and now those folks get to face the voters. And I think that changes that Wall Street Journal poll.
Let me see if I can get to that sound of George Stephanopoulos talking to President Obama.
That'd be great.
Okay, I need to take a break here right now. Can you hang for a little bit?
I will hang with you, sir.
Okay, that's Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder. He led the charge in Missouri to try and overturn the president's health care law, 436-7900 and 800-925-1120. We're going to keep him till about half past the hour. Also later today, Dr. Joel Goldstein, professor of law at St. Louis University, see what he has to say about this. Looking forward to his opinion as well. What is the mandate? That says if you don't have health insurance by the year 2014, you better buy it or you'll be assessed a tax. At one point, the president told George Stephanopoulos of ABC News that he did not consider that a tax. And we're going to try and get to that sound right now on KMOX.
I don't agree. I think that what they were referring to, and I haven't looked at the quotes, but I think they were concerned about whether or not this was actually affordable. If you're saying to people you got to get health insurance, but they can't actually afford it, and they have to pay a penalty if they don't get it, then that's a pretty big burden on middle-class families. That's a concern I share, making sure that this is affordable. But the first thing we got to understand is you've got what is effectively a tax increase taking place on American families right now. The Kaiser Family Foundation report just came out last week. Healthcare premiums went up 5.5% last year at a time when the rest of the economy, inflation was actually negative. So that is a huge bite out of people's pockets. And part of what I've been trying to say throughout this campaign, this effort to get health care done, is that if we don't do anything, guaranteed, Americans' costs are going to go up, more people are going to lose health care coverage, the insurance companies are going to continue to prevent people from getting it for pre-existing conditions. Those are all burdens on people who have health insurance right now.
That is true.
And so just to close the loop on this, the principles I've put forward very clearly when I spoke to the joint session of Congress is that we're going to make sure that, number one, if you don't have health insurance, you're going to be able to get affordable health insurance. Number two, if you have health insurance, we're going to have insurance reforms that give you more security. You know what you're going to get. You know that if you're paying your premiums, you're actually going to have coverage when you get sick. Number three, it's going to be deficit neutral. It's not going to add a dime to the deficit now or in the future. Number four, it's going to start driving down our costs over the long term. Now, 80% of what I'd like to see is actually already in all the various bills that are in Congress. That last 20% is tough because we got to figure out making sure that we're paying for it properly, making sure that it really is relief to families who don't have health insurance, making sure that all the various details that are out there line up. And that's going to take some time, but I think that the effort by the Senate Finance Committee is a serious, strong effort to move an agenda forward. We've seen some positive signs from people who might have been otherwise a little bit shaky on health care, including Republican Olympia Snowe, I think had some nice things.
Hasn't signed on yet.
Hasn't signed on, but has said that this is a legitimate effort to try to solve the problem. What I want to see is that we just keep on working on it over the next several weeks.
How about a matter of first principles? You mentioned these premium increases, but they're not happening as a result of a decision by the government.
Right.
You were against the individual mandate during the campaign. Under this mandate, the government is forcing people to spend money, fining you if you don't. How is that not a tax?
Well, hold on a second, George. Here's what's happening. You and I are both paying $900 on average, our families, in higher premiums because of uncompensated care. Now, what I've said is that if you can't afford health insurance, you certainly shouldn't be punished for that. That's just piling on. If, on the other hand, we're given tax credits, we've set up an exchange, you are now part of a big pool, we've driven down the costs, we've done everything we can, and you actually can afford health insurance, but you've just decided, you know what, I want to take my chances. And then you get hit by a bus, and you and I have to pay for the emergency room
That may
care.
be, but it's still a tax increase.
That's not true, George. For us to say that you've got to take a responsibility to get health insurance is absolutely not a tax increase. What it's saying is that we're not going to have other people carrying.
Well, there you have it. The president saying, Peter Kinder, that it's not a tax.
Yes, and thus avoiding the political accountability that would have flowed from saying forthrightly through the whole debate that what we're doing here is increasing taxes. Charlie, I want to make another point that is being overlooked here. The court apparently had another part of the opinion in which they said that what the federal government proposes to do to the states, that I've argued will wreck Missouri's budget and wreck the other states' budget, and that is their punitive action on Medicaid. If you do not set up the health care exchange, which has been a debate in the Missouri legislature and across our state, that the federal government under the Affordable Care Act, under Obamacare, had the power to revoke Medicaid funds. If you did not set up the exchange and if you did not expand Medicaid, I may have said Medicare, I meant Medicaid. If you did not expand Medicaid to 133% of the poverty level, the federal government had the power to punish states. And that has been revoked under this law and that under this today's decision by Justice Roberts. And that is a very good outcome on that one limited issue.
I think we have to let you go right now, but yeah, the Medicaid is one issue and the mandate is another. And you're going to have a press conference, I think, just around the corner, so we probably should let you go.
Telephone conference call. Thanks, Charlie, for having me on the very first.
Thank you very much for joining us, Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder.
Take care.
All right, we're going to take more phone calls, 436-7900.